The population of Taiwan is declining. As of March this year, population stood at 23.52 million people, some 41,855 people less than it was at the beginning of the year. Therefore, in this video, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a look at why numbers are falling, what effect this has on the country, and what can be done to solve any problems that a declining population may cause. So yes, by the end of March 2021, Taiwan's population stood at 23,525,623, a 0.3% decrease from the same time last year, meaning that the country lost on average 194.2 people per day during the year of 2020. And it'll come as no surprise to you that population increases or decreases, as we're talking about today, come from two major factors: immigration and emigration. Whether that immigration or emigration is by choice, people actually choosing to leave their home countries and come here, or leave this country and go to another country. And then of course there's the more natural immigration and emigration, when people don't have much choice in the matter. Basically, they're either born or they die. When the number of people coming into a country outweighs the number of people leaving, then the population grows, and vice versa. When the number of people leaving a country outweigh the number of those coming in, then the population will decrease, and that's what's happening in Taiwan. More people are dying than are being born, and more people are leaving the country in search of pastures new than those that are looking to come and start a life here. That's the situation in a nutshell, but what exactly are the numbers and why are they the way they are? Well, first of all, let's take a look at the more natural ways that people come into and leave this country, and talk about the fact that during the first 3 months of this year, there were 12,000 more deaths than there were births. A total of 47,626 people passed away, while only 34,917 births were registered. So if that trend continues year on year, losing 50,000 people per year, then give it a couple of hundred years and there'll be nobody left. Hoping, of course, it doesn't come to that, but this birth rate number actually puts Taiwan at the very bottom of a list of 227 countries when it comes to birth rate. Just 1.07 children per woman is being born in Taiwan. Just for reference sakes, my home country of the UK has a birth rate of 1.86, while the USA is quite similar with a birth rate of 1.84. And at the top of that list, in number 1 spot, is the African country of Niger, where the average woman gives birth to 6.91 kids. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. But before we get into how this low birth rate actually affects Taiwan, I thought I'd give you my tuppence worth on why I think Taiwan's birth rate is as low as it is, and why Taiwanese people are not having babies at the same rate as some other countries around the world. When you take a look at this list of 227 countries, yes, Taiwan is very bottom, but the preceding 4 countries are actually our very successful Asian neighbors: Korea, Singapore, Hong Kong and Macau. 4 other very wealthy Asian countries with very strong economies and high standards of living, which basically, without doing any research, made me come to a kind of personal opinion conclusion that maybe these countries are just too busy earning money and they want to secure themselves and make themselves financially safe before having children. They just don't have enough time to spend raising kids, and perhaps moreover, don't even have time to complete the process of actually making the kids. From my personal experience, the baby making process does take several hours at a time. Even practice sessions can go much longer than expected. So I fully understand that this time constraint may be giving Taiwanese people problems when it comes to having babies. But seriously, I really think it's no coincidence that these 5 Asian countries are ranked at the very bottom of this list, and I think culture has a massive part to play in it. Taiwanese people are generally much more responsible, especially when it comes to finances and big family life-changing decisions, coupled with the fact that I think the older generation are now becoming a little bit more modern and giving the younger generations much less pressure to have offspring and continue the family generation from such an early age. I've got some friends who are in their late 20s, early 30s, and when I ask them if their parents are giving them pressure to have babies, they say no, not really. It's much more free and accepting now, not like it used to be maybe 10 or 20 years ago. So these factors combined gives you the perfect recipe for what is happening at the moment. More and more Taiwanese people are either choosing to delay the baby making process until they're more financially stable and have more time to look after their kids, or indeed they're just choosing to abandon the process altogether and leave it up to somebody else to make up the shortfall in population numbers. So as I mentioned earlier, 47,000 people have passed away so far this year, and even if we include the additional 549 people that have unfortunately died from COVID, I feel the death rate is not where the problem is coming from. The death rate is only up by about 1.4% year on year, and from what I can gather, is following pretty normal levels. Of course, we would all love to see our elderly loved ones living as long as possible and enjoying life as much as they can. And with an average lifespan of 80.4 years, Taiwan is ranked at above average 43rd in the world. So as mentioned, I don't think the problem is coming from death rate, but I do think it's worth mentioning nonetheless. Actually, the little bit of research that I did do showed that analysts actually attributed the low birth rate to a falling number of weddings in the country. During the first quarter of 2021, 28,755 couples got married, which marked a 13.25% decrease from the same time last year. So I guess makes sense, fewer weddings, fewer babies. And also during that research, I found quite an alarming, quite unbelievable figure that said that 2.48 million people had chosen to leave or emigrate from Taiwan during the first quarter of 2021, while an almost equally huge number of 2.25 million chose to come the other way and immigrate into Taiwan, which to me are absolutely mind-boggling numbers. They represent like a 10% turnover in the population of the country within 3 months. And if we compare these figures to those of 2020 last year, they show a 2% increase in the number of people leaving and a 7% decrease in the number of people coming in. Of course, I think COVID had a huge part to play in these numbers and is one of the reasons that we did so well in fighting the virus last year. We just made it really difficult for people to come into the country, which is shown in these figures. But the difference between immigrants and emigrants of Taiwan is actually a rather huge 250,000, which I think has a much bigger impact on the balance of population than that of the birth rate. Yes, immigration and emigration numbers can fluctuate much quicker than those of a birth rate, and a low birth rate has a much longer term impact on a country than immigration would do. But also, as the majority of Taiwan's immigrants are tax-paying workers, this too can drastically affect the performance of Taiwan's economy. Yes, our good old friend, the economy, very much in danger where working age populations are falling. And with a 13% decrease in birth rate and a 1% increase in death rate, Taiwan is very much one of those countries that's in danger of a growing non-working age population, depending on a shrinking working age population. Lower birth rates and shrinking working age populations also mean that there are fewer money-spending consumers. This lowers opportunities to generate growth on the domestic market. Yes, Taiwan's export market is absolutely huge, but the domestic market still needs to be supported by money-spending consumers, and these are typically the people of working age. The benefit of their spending power would be severely diminished if the birth rate continues to decline. So that's my rather uneducated and simplistic view on the situation regarding the economy. But what can be done to fight this problem and stop it from getting any worse? Well, the answer to that is quite simple. People need to have more babies. In order to maintain a steady population, the birth rate should be about 2.1 children per woman. So at 1.07, Taiwan is approximately half the way there. The population will continue to decline unless people have more babies. And as such, the government have announced that they will increase their spending on the birth rate project to a total of 85 billion NT. That's up from 15 billion in 2016 and 55 billion in 2021. Premier Su Zhentang also said that Taiwan will be increasing the monthly children's subsidy to 5,000 NT per child, and that's up from 3,500. And there will also be several other initiatives that should make it easier, cheaper, and more attractive for young couples to have babies and contribute to the country's birth rate. One thing they are talking about is including infertility treatment on the National Health Insurance Scheme, therefore helping people who maybe want to have babies but cannot to be able to have their children and contribute to Taiwan's falling birth rate. Speaking from my personal experience, one area that definitely needs to be looked into is the amount of maternity leave and paternity leave that are given to new parents. I'm pretty sure it's just 8 weeks for maternity leave and a paltry, miserable, abysmal 5 days for new fathers. Luckily, when I had William, I had an awesome boss that gave me an extended paternity leave. But yes, the majority of people don't get enough maternity leave, and I think it's a major factor as to why people choose not to have children in order to work longer, build up more of a savings, a security feeling before having children at a later date. I feel there's just like 10 or 15 years gap at the moment where people are just choosing not to have babies. But now I think it's time for you to have your say. Let me hear your opinion. Are you one of the people choosing to delay the baby making process for any of the reasons that I've mentioned, or perhaps there's something that I've missed? As always, the comment section of this video will serve as a forum of discussion to talk about the things that I've talked about and anything else you've got to say on the matter. I'm not an expert. I just present some of the facts that I find combined with some of my opinion. But I'd love to get you guys' opinion on what you think the government can do to make it more attractive, cheaper, or easier for Taiwanese people to stop with all this practicing of baby making and get down to real business, bite the bullet, and actually have more babies. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to say. Really appreciate you being here to the very, very end. As you know, you are the most important viewers. Forget about all those ones that leave halfway through. I really appreciate you guys' support. If you've enjoyed the video, you can always hit like and boost it a little bit up the algorithm. And of course, if you haven't subscribed, then please do so. Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for watching. As for now, and as always, I'll see you next time in my life in Taiwan. Peace. Bye-bye.